All right, we're back down in the Chiefs pit. Timmy Petty, Mark Petty, and Richie Petty. And a lot of races and stuff that go on, and through the years we've watched and didn't realize what was going on. But there's something today's racing doesn't have that was back in the 70s and 80s was pretty common, was relief drivers. And I was watching some races the other day on the TV, and 1979, the Southern 500. It must have been hotter than Hades down there. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Drivers had an observation about the heat earlier.
It'll take its toll. There's no doubt about it. I hope that I'll be able to stand it. You know, I try to stay outdoors as much as I possibly can to stay used to this hot, humid weather, but I'm sure that's going to take its toll.
The humidity is so high, it's so hot, that the physical aspects can take over as well. You can lose enough moisture out of the body that you just can't make it up, that you can't drink enough, and you do get kind of lightheaded and sometimes even have to have relief.
Affects me like it affects everybody else. It just makes it that much tougher on us. You know, it's usually tough on the car, but when it gets this hot, it just makes it that much tougher on the driver.
I kind of like the warm weather, and you know, usually I can go pretty good when it's hot. So I hope that holds true today.
I'm in good shape. I've run hard everywhere I've been this year. I'm going to run hard today. But I know when this 500 miles is over, I'll be a worn-out 32-year-old man. I can't imagine being 42 and going through the same thing.
Heat and time involved is the most important part of the race. As far as physically work, getting out there and doing it ain't really that bad. It's just the time involved. And the heat is a big factor here. You might even see some guys taking relief today.
And what year was it they were coming off 4 and they were both, it was still in the cast iron cylinder head days, and there would be water poofing off the
cars.
off the exhaust.
Yeah.
On both it was Darrell Waltrip and the King, wasn't it?
It might have been. But anyway, 79 Southern 500. Richard's in on a championship run, and he's coming in there. But I think they had a problem with ignition box or something early in the race. But anyway, he went on out there and kept going.
That could be very serious for car number 43, Richard Petty. They didn't even bring it down pit lane. Let's see what happens. Up goes the hood here. That's bad. And there's Morris. Petty running down to him, the crew chief. Oh, that is tough because Richard was hanging right in there in 4th place right behind Darrell Waltrip, and all of a sudden he's off the race course. Can you speculate on it?
Well, Richard Petty, of course, is on a radio, two-way radio to his crew chief, so therefore he knew that it might have been an electrical problem of some kind, so they very quickly got that repair done. But look at the time they're losing in that pit lane there, but there's your man. Look who's taking the lead, Bill.
Bobby Allison, what was wrong with Petty's car?
Maurice, what happened to Richard?
There's a control box in there. It costs about $125. And it's just a bad piece, and it's running good. It'll be all right till that box quits.
So that little box, the ignition box in that car, was what caused the problem with Richard Petty.
But he come out of the car. He got too hot. And,
Who did they get to relieve him?
I believe it was Donnie Allison. And but anyway, the funny part about it is if you watch that, Daddy's at the window helping him out and helping Donnie get in. But Richard almost passes out coming out of the car. And so I can't imagine how hot he was.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, they had used to administer oxygen in that situation.
Well, right after that, they show him, he goes over to the wall and Daddy's helping Donnie get in, and he goes over and grabs a broom and starts pushing people back.
They were trying to hover around.
Yeah, he's trying to get him some cool air because the guy's trying to cool off.
They got chiefed.
Richard Petty, Kyle, Richard's son, standing in the pit area to see what happened to his father, who had said on the radio that he was feeling groggy. Well, as it turned out, he almost passed out when he came out of the car. He was very pale, and Donnie Allison wedged himself in the window and got back out in car number 43. In the meantime, Richard got his helmet off and his cold pack on his head off, which didn't seem to be doing him too much good, and got to an area to get some oxygen, and the medics came over to take a look at him. His brother, Morris, got people away from him so he could get a little bit of breathing room. And Richard sprawled out on the ground as the medics took his blood pressure and got some oxygen to him and also a cold pack on his chest.
Yeah. The broom was a good thing to clear the area.
But he was, you know, we've said it before, Daddy was really protective of Richard. And he was concerned for his health. But Richard wasn't the only one to come out of the car that day. I believe Ricky Rudd was a rookie or sometime. He was a young driver then, and he came out, and there's an interview of him, and he doesn't know where he's at. It was really, really weird.
Really?
Yeah, because he had to pull in because he was afraid. He said he about blacked out there. I think that's what he said in the video. So.
Ricky Rudd, a younger member of this racing crew, Rookie of the Year 2 years ago, was having his problems, and Jackie Stewart talked to him about the heat.
Ricky, you're obviously exhausted. You've had a difficult time. Your eyes are still glazed. How does the heat exhaustion come on?
Well, it just kind of thing. It just kind of wears on as the day gets longer, and you know, especially if the car is not driving just right, and you got to stay on top of the car and fight it. You know, you're all the time working the wheel and the gas and the brake the whole time you're in a corner. And when the heat gets to you, you know, you can't think clearly, and the car more or less starts driving you and takes you where it wants to go instead of you driving it. And that's a good way to get somebody hurt. So I figured it's time to pull it in and park it.
Obviously a situation of potential danger to not only you but to the other drivers.
Yeah, you know, I really didn't know where I was, or, you know, so lightheaded and dizzy that I was at the point I could have passed out on the racetrack, so I didn't want to take a chance on hurting myself or hurting somebody else either, so I parked it.
And I think, you know, you had several others come out. So those cars back in those days were big, heavy cars, and they didn't have all the air conditioners, did they, Mark? Or nothing?
No, and also back in them days, the drivers, they worked they worked on their own stuff and worked during the week, or even some of them even had regular jobs, right?
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays, these guys, they're on rigorous diets and workout plans.
You know.
And I'm going to say they're in better shape these days, but they also probably, I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably
but
more,
relief drivers used to be a big thing.
Comfort.
But even in the 90s, we'd have relief drivers. Now, I guess the rules of NASCAR now you really can't do a relief driver.
Didn't you say Lenny
Pond? Their seats are more
contoured
and custom fit.
I couldn't get in your seat.
And
you
plus,
couldn't get in mine.
And plus, they're like the seats are like lazy boys now, and they got air conditioners and all.
Well, didn't you say that Lenny Pond got in the car first?
I believe that was
or was that a different race?
That's a different race. I think that was *81.
And then he came
Charlotte.
in pretty quick, and everybody was like, "Was he? He couldn't reach the pedals."
Richard come out of the car, and
okay, that was Charlotte.
Yeah, but anyway, I believe it was Charlotte, if my memory serves me right. And Lenny Pond got in. He ran some laps, but he had to come in, and they put Dave Marcus, I believe, got in afterwards because Lenny Pond was too short. He couldn't reach the pedals.
Well, didn't they even sometimes on pit stops even reach in there and give Richard a little oxygen?
Sometimes.
He wouldn't even get out of the car, but.
Just a little
booze.
Just something to get his head straight.
But that '81 Charlotte must have been really tough too, because Kyle come out of the car that day too. Kyle and Richard.
0.5 of a second for Neil Bonnet. The distance of 600 miles, and we look at Kyle Petty down from our observation. He is very weak, and the heat has gotten to that young Elliott because Bonnet had to pit under green. It is going to be a shootout to the wire. There's Pearson. David Pearson.
But I'm sure that as time went on, they got everything sealed up better too. There was probably less exhaust coming in on them and stuff like that.
And if you remember back on them cars, the exhaust come right up under you, so you're sitting there cooking. You remember?
That's true.
You've actually, Mark had in a late model, he cooked his foot and had to get a skin graft.
Yeah, but that was what them.
Right, but still, I'm just saying when they changed the pipe location a little bit to cool the drivers off in the day's times.
Yep.
But today's points is different. That was the Winston Cup points. And every point mattered. From the first race to the end, they didn't have playoffs. Every race was...
Richard Petty, the first 7 laps were run under caution because of that rainstorm just to finish drying out the track. And the driver who starts a car in Grand National Racing scores the points. What a break for Petty, who just 1 week ago slammed into the wall at over 100.
So if a driver got fatigued and couldn't go, they put somebody else in, they were still making points for that driver.
But the driver had to start the race.
Right, exactly.
Because, like even when Richard broke his neck at Pocono,
1980.
He would, for a race or two after that, he'd run a lap, and then Joe Milliken would get in the car. Right.
Yep.
Right.
That was the rule. You
have to take the green
if
flag.
If you wanted to get those points, that driver had to start your race.
But you remember back in 1980, they got lucky at the Talladega race, and Joe got in. But they started on caution. I think it might have been rain or something. But Richard had said in an interview that he was prepared to go to the first pit stop. but they were lucky because the green flag come out, and I think they started under caution.
Okay.
So they got him in and out quick. So it worked in his favor then. But holy cow, I can't imagine. I mean, I have had some aches and pains
Speaking
in
of
cars,
Joe,
but I can't imagine breaking my dadgum neck.
And then crawling in the car, much less driving.
Jarrett on that stop that was made earlier today.
Been somewhat of a break for Richard Petty and Joe Milliken. Now they're able to make the driver change they anticipated without Richard having to run full speed. Of course, you can see the brace neck brace on him, and Joe Milliken now going in. They do not anticipate too long of a period of time here because they had everything hooked up and ready just to plug right in. Of course, the safety paraphernalia on these NASCAR Grand National cars takes a little bit. The damn track here today was somewhat of a break for you, starting under the green caution period.
Well, really, we was going to run to the first caution, and this does give me a break. I don't even have to get under green at all. So, from that standpoint, it's going to be a little bit better for us. But from Joe's standpoint, he's going to have to start way in the back, so that's going to make a big disadvantage.
How are you feeling?
Well, I was feeling all right, but, I didn't want to take a chance on hurting myself worse than what I am.
Were you ready to go a full green stop?
Yeah, we was ready to try a full green stop, whatever it would be. But, under these circumstances, I think it's going to be better for us all.
But Joe, back in the LG DeWitt days, needed relief driving, and the King had fell out.
That would have been rocking him.
Oh, yeah, and he got in the 72.
Almost won the race.
And was going to win the race, and then he pulled in, and Joe got back in. He said, I can't win this race for this boy. Or something of that nature.
Okay.
That was the 79 season again, and Joe was running for Rookie of the Year against Earnhardt. And Joe and Earnhardt, they had a pretty good battle all year, and that was going to be one of them. Joe was fixing to win his first one. Earnhardt didn't win till Bristol, right? He finally won.
I think so, yeah.
So it was competitive little thing.
That would have made it a different story.
Oh yeah, it would have.
But they'd already raced against each other on the short tracks week in and week out.
They know each other. Well, speaking of the Winston Cup, we got some of these Winston Cup belt buckles, and I think we'll throw a few of them on our online store. So check it out if you're interested in getting your little souvenir from back in the 70s in the Winston Cup. How about that?
Sounds cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, any more stories on the relief drivers?
Like it's hard to remember or recall all of them, but the relief drivers, that was a pretty regular thing,
Oh yeah.
I can't think of who wasn't.
But what got me watching some MO races, you'd have guys just falling out at different times. But if your car really handled good and you was really running good,
you didn't even think about it.
No, you just kept trucking along there.
Well, I would say that was probably a big factor of it. Yeah. If you was running back, but no, it had to be pretty. Just to quit, to say, all right, I'm done. I'm going to get out of this car.
Well,
it had to be.
Well, but how much have they already drove just completely exhausted up to the point of surrender?
I've had like Ricky Rudd. I've had enough. I got to get out of here.
Well, Ricky Rudd, he was saying that he didn't know where he was at, and it was for the safety of the other guys. He had to get out of the car.
Right.
So I can't imagine.
He made the call.
I've been hot in the car, and I've been a little woozy, but I hadn't been that far along.
That's
and I can't
almost
imagine.
delusional.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
The picture he made a week ago Sunday, Pocono, Pennsylvania. You saw this coast to coast. A terrible crash at 160 miles an hour at turn 2 in the Pocono 500. He walked away from it, but the next day he wasn't ambulatory. In the hospital until Tuesday, released late on Tuesday, out here 2 days ago running over 190 miles per hour. Richard Petty, as you look forward to tomorrow, how do you feel?
Well, I tell you, I felt a whole lot better starting a lot of races, but, this is kind of a deal that this is our business, and they're having a race this week, and we're here.